Welcome, students, to Session Zero University. My name is Professor Rainier, one of the many teachers here at the university, but for right now, I am your orientation representative. Here at SCU, you will find a variety of professors well-versed in the realms of tabletop role-playing games, offering you their insight on every facet of TTRPGs. Perhaps you'd like to take a homebrewing class with our potions professor, or join in on a role-playing class put on by our theater department. Be sure to take all your required general education classes like Character Creation 101, Intro to World Building, and NPC Voices for Beginners to help round out your education. There are also plenty of electives and intramural opportunities to add some fun and diversity into your everyday schedule. So get out there and learn. Whether you're hoping to graduate with a degree in DMing or playing It Matters Not, there's always room to grow at Session Zero University.
Welcome, students, to the Intramural One-Shots class. My name is Dr. Roger James Biddenbocker. If this class doesn't sound familiar, then you probably aren't taking it and should probably leave now. Good. There's still 2 of you left. Now, for the ones who stayed, this class will be covering the purpose of one-shots. The who, what, when, where, and why for one-shots. Hopefully, by the end of this quick class, you'll have a better understanding of how you can run a one-shot for your regular RPG playing groups. Before I can't keep up with that ridiculous voice the whole time.
I was just going to double check and ask if you had said the who, what, when, where, and whys of TTRPG.
Yeah, no, I did not. Not the why for one shots. Yeah,
that's what why
yeah.
For.
So before I dive into anything, I want to state the main difference to one shots and why I personally prefer them over a long-term campaign. Also, feel free to ask questions at any time.
You got it.
Just insert. You can raise a hand, whatever. I don't freaking care. So I personally prefer one-shots over long-term campaigns. To me, a one-shot is a small contained story where the beginning, middle, and end are all within a short period of time. Well, a campaign is a long-term thing where storylines and arcs slowly build up and are slow brew, but in a good way. Mm-hmm. To me, I view a one-shot as a movie and a long-term campaign as a TV show. So let's focus on the one-shot compared to a movie. I want to focus in on this idea.
Yeah.
Like a movie, we need to get our whole story across from beginning to end in 1 or 2 consecutive sessions. It's like mainly the idea of a movie is all condensed into one film. Sometimes a part 1, part 2, like they're starting to do now. But I'm not a fan of it, but they're starting to do that now. Like a movie, it is a short form of story that, if done well, can create an interesting world and can engage the players for an amount of time until you hit the climax of the story. It is up to the players then to make their characters engaging and to have fun in this short-term world and to make the most of it in a quick time they have to play. This means being able to create arcs for the characters that will show growth. Important to note here, though, that these characters don't need to complete lifelong goals or anything of that sort, but rather they need to show some form of growth, just like that of a movie character shows. Growth in their own way, usually positive growth, but sometimes characters show negative growth, which is still interesting and can make for a fun story, but the idea is that there is some growth. And usually a one-shot will force growth, whether small or big, but it isn't like you come in with a big life-changing goal. Right. That's probably not going to be achieved in a one-shot. But you could have a big life-changing goal, and a one-shot could make your character move steps towards that goal.
Right.
So that's why I prefer. And personally, I prefer movies over TV shows, but some people prefer TV shows versus movies. But the thing is, the idea is a one-shot has a bigger story in a smaller time frame, and because of that, it feels like a lot more happens.
Yeah. And I think it opens up the opportunity, right? Like you can sit down with players and say, hey, I mean, as far as right now goes, we're going to have a one shot.
Yeah.
And we're going to tell like a very specific shortened story But that doesn't mean that you can't like take that character that achieved a little bit of growth within that short story and maybe go into a long-term campaign or something like that.
I've seen people who really enjoyed a one-shot character so much that when a new campaign is starting up, they want to take that one-shot character and grow them more into a long-term campaign. And that's beautiful. You can even see that in modern media where they'll have a character that was so good. Great example of this is recently with the James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
Right.
Peacemaker was a character that he loved so much and the audience loved so much that he then took that character basically from a one-shot and made a whole show about that one character, right?
Yep.
Giving his own cast of sidekicks and all that stuff. And that's the beauty of a one-shot is you could take a really well fleshed out character, again, from just a small bit of time, like a one-shot, and then give them that long-term campaign to really grow out the character that was so interesting in that one-shot to the long-term. And that's the other thing about one-shots. It's not going to be a complete character, but that's what makes it work is you don't need a complete character. Right. One-shot can do the building enough for the amount of time it takes, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when you have a long-term campaign, sure, you want characters with a little more depth to them because the campaign's going to have more depth to it.
Yep.
But
we're going to be here for a while.
But a one-shot doesn't need that depth. And that kind of makes the beauty of a new character to be explored within the realm of a small story of a one-shot.
Absolutely. It opens up a lot of opportunity to experiment with different characters because it's only going to be here for a little while.
Yep.
It also opens up the opportunity of, man, I played that character in the one shot and I kind of hated it and it just really didn't fit my style, but it's a learning experience that I gained that I wasn't stuck with for the next 2 years while we do this long-term
It's
campaign.
true. And also that's the thing. A lot of D&D players or RPG players in general will have a bunch of ideas, especially if they're long-time players, a lot of ideas on the back burner for different joke characters, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And a one-shot is a good way for them to really just get that character out of the way. They're like, I know this character won't be really best for a long-term campaign, but I really want to try it. One-shot, perfect. You can do it in one shot. Get that out of your system. You're like, okay, either I had a lot of fun playing, I want to do it again, or I got it out of my system.
That got it out of my system. Yeah, we did it. We got it done. So that's a lot from a really great overview from the player standpoint when it comes to one shots. What about for the DMs who are out there trying to build these things?
Most of what I have is actually from a DM's point of view.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually great. We got the player stuff really out of the way. So first off, I wanted to give the purpose of a one shot. Why run a one shot? There's a lot of reasons, actually. It's more than just a couple. First one could be you want to fill for your regular RPG sessions, and some players could be missing. Another could be you also use one-shots to be the filler in between campaigns. My other D&D group, not Session Zero Heroes, but I have another one. We like to do this where we have a long-term campaign, and then in between the next one, we'll have a series of 1 or 2, 3 one-shots ran by the other players to give the next DM time to finish their campaign. And that way it's also a little breath of fresh, it's a little breath of fresh air. Kind of
Adventure Zone does.
That's what I was going to say. Adventure Zone does that exact thing.
Yes.
And it works really well. My other group does that, and it works beautifully. It does the job of allowing you to try those joke characters because we want to do joke characters, but then we don't want to do full joke characters in our campaigns, even though that group is very not serious. So we usually have somewhat joke characters for all of us, but we go all out in the one shot just so we can get out our system. And then it's basically like a whale, right? Where you come up for air, but for most of the time you're under the water, but you need to come up for that air. And that's the beauty of one shot. It's coming up for that air to allow that refreshing, and then you go back into another deep campaign. Also, I did put in parentheses for this particular one. Congrats on actually finishing a campaign. Not many groups can say they did that. So the fact you are considering doing a one-shot between campaigns, you did something most groups can't say they have.
That's
done.
true.
So
that's a good point.
Shout out to you, whatever people experiencing that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot of work.
Yeah,
a lot of commitment.
Third reason is to help with DM burnout. I remember running the occasional one-shot whenever I was noticing our usual DM. I like how I'm talking in third person here. It was you, Skylar. Because Skylar is our normal DM, as you probably have noticed very quickly on Session Zero Heroes. But I would notice before we started recording Session Zero Heroes that sometimes I could see the signs of burnout in the DM because I am basically the second most DM in our group. And so I could see it with Skylar. So I'd be like, hey, Skylar, take like a couple weeks off. I'll run one-shots so you can just de-stress. And what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. No, it gives you more time to like collect your thoughts. I think it's just one of those things of like the constant ongoing, like every week, I need to come up with where the storyline is going, and depending on what the players have successfully done. And that's the thing too, is like, if you've got players that really take their time, it kind of goes both ways. If you got players that take their time and they slowly work through things, it can be a little frustrating as the DM, because you're like, I would love to have other ideas, but I can't even come up with new ideas until you guys get past this stuff. Or there's the inverse of they're speeding through everything I come up with so fast that I can't keep up with it and I need a break.
Yeah. And also, another thing is being stuck as that forever DM, you do kind of get burned out just being stuck as that. So a one-shot gives that DM a chance to be that player, get out the breath of fresh air. It's like the whale thing, but for the DM. The DM needs that breath of
help, I've been underwater too long.
Exactly. A rather fun reason for doing a one-shot is a seasonal one-shot, which is loads of fun. I know here at Session Zero Heroes, we like to do a yearly one-shot around Halloween, and this is actually something we as a group were doing even before Session Zero Heroes, where we always do one-shots, a Halloween-themed one-shot around Halloween. Yes, it's just a thing we've always done, and we just transferred it to Session Zero Heroes. Fun holiday themes around a one-shot can just be a lot of fun. Halloween's the biggest one, of course, because it's just RPGs and horror just go hand in hand.
Everybody wants to find that like horror RPG
also,
that
like,
works for you.
You also can do Christmas themes. That's another big one. But I said you can even go creative. You can make a fun St. Patty's Day one wherever they're trying to catch a leprechaun or something. Or I even said you could take inspiration from Stranger Things, a popular TV show that had a whole season based around 4th of July. Like, you can get creative with your seasons because there's a lot of interesting seasons. There's also, it could be even fun to explore a season if, say, your whole group is American like we are. There's so many holidays that are foreign. Like foreign holidays that we as Americans don't know much about. But if a DM did a little digging, they could probably find an interesting foreign holiday where the players not only can explore this new holiday concept, but they can explore it as characters fresh in a story too. Yeah. So it truly would be like a new experience for a new holiday and a new world. And so, it could be really cool if you did that.
It steps those players that have been playing and like probably have DM'd at some point, right? Like they're pretty well versed in the monster manual and this and that, and then takes them out of like, oh, well, it's just another, D&D, high fantasy, whatever. We're going to run another one. No, this is something totally different. The world is going to feel different. The monsters are going to be totally different. You're not going to know what their weaknesses are because by accident.
Do you guys know about the Yule log celebration of Sweden? And they go, what? And you're like, that's what we're running a session on. And you're like, okay.
And you get an interesting stories
and then you're like, so the Yule log cat gracefully sleeps. Also, this is all real. Just saying. Anyways.
Yule log what?
Cat.
Cat?
Yes.
There's a cat?
Yes.
What is a Yule log?
It's a log. Anyways, a personal favorite reason of mine for running a one-shot is to help get creative juices flowing, to help with the creativity and practicing of improv for a long-term campaign. You could do this in between campaigns, like I said. You could even do this during campaigns. To do this, I have my players show up expecting a one-shot, but the catch is they won't know the setting or their character. Beforehand, I created a fun one-shot and then generated. I personally do random generation, but you could generate sheets however you want. Yeah. But the idea is you are making them as the DM, not the players. Then, when the players arrive, you give them randomly, hand out the character sheets, kind of like in Community when Abed places down the papers. And he was going to give them to them, but then they all randomly took. That's exactly what's going to happen with your players. They just randomly take. I remember the last time I did this, I laid 5 sheets down, and I put a shape on the back of them. And in the story, I said there was 5. They were basically going to step into an avatar machine, like from Avatar, the movie, James Cameron movies. Oh, okay. Where they step into a machine, it's going to transfer them into someone else. And so I said there was 5 machines with 5 shapes on them, and on the back of each character sheet, I threw the shapes. And so they said which shape they got into, and then when they chose the shape, I then gave them the character sheet, and they flipped it over and discovered their new character.
Did the shapes have some kind of correlation?
Absolutely not. I randomed it. So, but anyway,
it's just easy visual for you.
I also randomed the characters generated as well, so it was pure random. But anyways, the idea of doing that is it gets the characters out of their comfort zone because it could force your typical mage-only player to have to play a fighter, and they have no choice, right? When you force people out of their comfort zone, it forces them to think on the spot, and when you force people to think on the spot, it makes them have to be more creative, and that's not a bad thing.
No,
that's
not
a
at all.
great thing.
Yeah.
It will help them be a better player for future games.
Right.
Once you go back to that campaign.
It's kind of like what you end up getting when you and if anybody's ever had the opportunity, they probably know what I'm talking. If everybody's ever done it, they know what I'm talking about. But if you have the opportunity, I highly recommend it. And it is like DMing for kids, and these kids have no preconceived notions of anything. This is all so new to them, and the ability for them to come up with just the craziest ideas during a session is awesome. So yeah, I think that kind of goes along with that same idea of getting them out of their comfort zone and making them experience everything new for the first time.
And we can speak from experience because we've done it a few times with our own group outside recording, and we did one where Skylar was doing a Halloween horror like killer at a camp thing.
Oh yeah,
and we all had random characters, and it's still one of our favorite one shots
so
we've
ridiculous.
ever ran.
It was terrible in the worst way.
It was so bad, but it's created all four of us made some iconic characters. But mind you, these were 4 characters we crafted on the spot when we got the character sheets and flipped them over and looked at our stats and our information. And we're like, okay, guess this is what we're playing as. On the spot, created 4 unique characters that were all hilarious and were somehow had a lot of depth to them.
They did. I think it was the beauty of it was just how people interpreted the stats. Like, I don't want to go too far into it just because it was kind of dark in a weird way. But yeah, just like looking at your stats and seeing that your HP is ridiculously low and your constitution.
We had one player whose HP their constitution was -3, and they were a wizard. So they were level 3, and their HP was 3 health because that's the minimum it can be at level 3. And
needless to say, basically the character played someone who was like sickly with a disease.
They were on deathbed,
like death,
and they were sent to this camp as like their last, like
they're like a Make-A-Wish.
Their Make-A-Wish was to go to a camp before they died.
It's so terrible, but at the same time, it was so like intriguing of like this kid who's like it's not a character a normal it's not a character you would normally think of.
No, not at all.
Not to say that everybody's a min-maxer, but I mean, you try to play to the strengths of whatever class.
I would never have thought of playing a character that had minimum HP.
Yeah, that's like the opposite of what you're going
they're
for.
dying.
You're like, hey, at the very least, my character could at least be semi-healthy, but no. It was pretty great.
And my final reason for running a one-shot is to try out a new RPG system.
Yes.
Say someone in the group discovered a new RPG system and they really want to try it, or they just bought one. Skylar loves doing this.
Yeah, I do have a problem.
The thing is, sometimes, and it's the smart thing to do, is you should try out that system in a one-shot before you commit to a long-term campaign.
With like the sample rules that they post online.
Exactly.
For free.
Before you commit to a long-term campaign and after a couple sessions, everyone in the group's like, I hate this system. And you're like, well, shoot, I just spent all this time crafting a long-term campaign and everyone hates the system.
Yeah.
One shot, great way to just get a feel on the system. If everyone in the group's like, heck yeah, I love this system, then consider making a long-term campaign. But if everyone's just honestly, if everyone's just not feeling 10 out of 10 on the system, you probably shouldn't commit to it. 8s, 9s, maybe if that's the group majority. But if everyone's like, it was good, like that's probably not something.
5, 6 or lower, probably like, is it worth it?
Yeah, and if one person really loved it, but everyone's like still mid on it, it's still probably not going to work. If it's a system and everyone gets out of it, like Daggerheart, for example, me, you, and Jackson recorded us making characters, and Dave recorded making characters, and all of us left that character making going. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
And that was just from character creation. Like, you want a system like that, where you dip your feet in, and if after just dipping your feet in, you're like, I want more. You're like, okay, that's a system you want. But if you dip your feet in, you're like, it's all right, then avoid that. That's fine to one shot. Maybe one shot it again if you're fine with it, but not long-term campaign. But that's the beauty of one shots.
Yeah.
It's a good way to dip your feet into a system and see if it's something you want to dive into it or if you just want to like walk around in for a little bit and then hop out.
And get out. I mean, and the beauty of it too is that if you're playing with, obviously if you're playing with friends, that makes things a lot easier. But if you're playing with people that have played a little bit of TTRPGs throughout, they know like maybe I just didn't make a good character, or now that I see how the mechanics work, I might invest my stats or whatever else.
Yeah.
The way I built my character would be different. Doesn't mean I don't like the system. Just I would do things differently to like set myself up for a little bit more fun.
But that is what a one-shot can do. You can
exactly.
try things out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the end of why run a one-shot.
Right.
So now I'm going to do it. Next, you're probably wondering how you design a one-shot.
See, that's my biggest struggle is because I have such a hard time not building out this massive story. And I desperately want to run one-shots better, Cameron. So teach me what I'm doing wrong.
I don't want to say simple. It's not. It's a 4-step system I made to hopefully make this is how I make one-shots. And I make a lot of one-shots. So this is how my 4-step system, how I make a one-shot. First, think of a setting.
Okay.
Every story needs a setting and themes of what you're going for.
Right.
Are you going for spooky? Feeling for Halloween? Are you going for a dreamlike situation, almost like Alice in Wonderland or Wizard of Oz? Maybe you feel like doing a school-type situation with kids breaking free from the status norm kind of story. You honestly can think of any and all types of situations and or settings, but find one you are excited about digging into. This is my caveat. This is probably the most important thing of running a one-shot as a DM. Figure out a setting you love.
Right.
You want to dig deeper into. If you as the DM aren't doing a setting or hitting on a story you aren't passionate about, then you're going to deliver a so-so story. And when you deliver a so-so story, the players are going to give back a so-so playing style.
Mm-hmm.
And when they give back that, you'll end up with a lukewarm session. But if you as a DM love the story and you are into it and passionate about it, you will be excited and engaged the entire time. When you're excited and engaged, players feed off of this, and they will be excited and engaged in what you're telling them.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you get them to explore your world. That is how you grow your world, and that is how you get them engrossed into a story.
Right, right. Because they want to experience it,
mm-hmm.
and they're going to help you build it. And that's
that's the thing. You can start.
You don't have to build it all.
Very simplistic.
Yes.
And then the players, how they explore, they will create that world. But they won't always just create the world, but rather, that's, again, if you're passionate about it, say they do something that you didn't plan for.
Mm-hmm.
If you're passionate about it, you'll be able to think of something on the spot.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll be excited about something you made on the spot, right? And if it's something you really care about, like I gave the example of Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland is a very interesting book series, and there's a few of them. If you're a big person who loves that world, and the player asks a question, you prepare for it, but then you're like, oh, I remember this obscure thing from the books that I really enjoyed. You can bring that obscure thing into this world on a dime, and then the players might find it just as cool as you do. And if not, whatever, right?
And that requires you to really kind of immerse yourself and be willing to immerse yourself. One of my favorite things that players do, and this is how you know that you've got them engrossed, is when somebody suggests an idea that you hadn't thought of before, and you're just sitting there as the DM, and you're like, oh, yeah, that is actually correct. Wow, well done. And you get to play it off as if you had already thought of it before. Yeah. But I mean, the beauty of it is that, again, your players are going to help you build that world. Mm-hmm. And you can you can absorb their ideas because that gives them something that they're like, I figured things out.
And then it makes you even more excited because then you see your players are engaged and excited about the world that you're excited about. Right. It's almost like when you show a friend a movie or a TV show that you love and you're seeing how much they're loving it and asking questions and engaged in it. Because that makes you feel better about it and you're more engaged into it. And so it feeds off each other.
It really does. It really does.
That's the big thing. Find a setting you love.
Yes.
That's the idea, right? And sometimes you can craft your own setting that you love. Like I know I was talking about the new campaign I was building. It's inspired by BioShock and One Piece, two things I very much love.
Yes.
So I'm passionate about it because I combine two things I love into my own project, but it's taken from things from love. It's not like I took two concepts of things I'm like so about. And I'm like, I think it'll be good. Like, no, I love it. I know it'll be good because it's two things I love. Right?
Yes. There are elements of Criminals of Isla Numis that are actually inspired straight from Cyberpunk 2077, which I absolutely loved playing through every second of. So, yeah, I totally get that. Also, just to throw this out there, I'm actually playing BioShock with Emily now.
I remember that.
So, yeah, she's intrigued and she's hooked too because she was
just Infinite?
We're starting with the beginning. Okay, I might skip the second one just because
it's basically the same as the first. Yeah, it's just new story, new characters,
side story happening.
Yeah. But BioShock Infinite's the one for my story, but I think Infinite's the better storyline.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. But yeah,
Okay.
she's definitely immersed.
So now we've crafted our setting.
Yes.
Right? So that's the first thing. Second thing, time to fill this setting with a storyline. It is up to you how you want to fill it, whether you start from the beginning and craft up until you hit your climax. But personally, I prefer starting with whatever is the objective of the story and going from there.
Right.
Because in a long-term campaign, you need an objective, but that objective will eventually come. And sometimes you can kind of start with a very vague beginning, right? Like a fetch quest and whatever, and then grow from there based on how your senior players are.
Yeah.
One shot, you don't have that option. You need to have that objective right from the get-go, right? Because at the end of the day, a one shot is basically, if you're playing a video game, a one shot is basically a side quest.
Right.
And a side quest isn't just like, oh, you need to do it, you need to do this, then you need to do this, then you need to do this, then you need to do this, and then it doesn't do that. It's not like a chain of events. It's one main event.
Right.
Right. And so when you have your setting, so now you need that one main event.
Right.
This could be a big bad evil guy. That's the best classic way to do a one shot.
Sure.
Or it's a social enemy with a fight against the power of the system, but it's like it's a minor thing in the big world, but you don't care about the big world right now. It's just a minor thing for the one shot. It could be a heist. Heist one shots are pretty simple.
Oh, yeah.
Very easy. Because it's like, here's your goal. How do you do the goal? The players plan, then they try it out.
You're here to steal a thing. Go steal the thing.
It's one of the simplest one shots.
Absolutely.
If you're doing a horror themed, best one shot I could give you here: an abandoned house. Send the players to go explore it, and they're a bunch of like Scooby-Doo gang teenagers.
Yeah.
That's one of the best one shots.
That's exactly what we did for our last one.
I've done 3 of them.
Yeah.
So it's literally one of the best one shots for like Halloween. So it's so much fun. But whatever you craft for the object or antagonist, because sometimes it might not be a person, it might be a thing, like a haunted house, right?
Or like a soon-to-erupt volcano.
Or a graveyard.
Yeah.
Or an Alice in Wonderland-esque situation where it's not really the objective isn't stop something, it's rather how do I get out?
Yeah, how do I get home? Yeah.
Or like Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah.
So you have this. You've set this up. You prioritize this first because then you can set the stage for how the group can beat or escape or do whatever to achieve the objective. Then you need to design a way for the players to get through this story from where you start. The main characters need to figure out the ending at the start.
Right.
If the characters don't know the ending at the start, you're not going to have a one shot.
No.
It's going to be a long term.
You're about to go into a sandbox.
If you don't have the ending right in front of the character's eyes, it's not a one shot. Simple as that.
They're going to go exploring.
It goes exploring, and it creates a long time. So.
And I think that this step 2 that you're talking about, is honestly where the whole like division between a one shot and a full time or a long term campaign really kind of comes into play.
And that is why I'm establishing right now.
Yes.
Have a goal. Set it right in front of your characters.
Right.
Say, do this.
Yes.
It's railroading.
It is railroading, but not in a bad way.
But a one shot needs it.
Yes.
Because if you don't put a railroad in a one shot, they will wander and it will take multiple sessions.
Right.
Okay.
It's important to like establish that railroading in and of itself isn't always a bad thing, especially in one shots. Sometimes even in long-term campaigns, it's not a bad thing. Like you got to get the players from point A to point B. Not everything is a sandbox campaign.
Yeah.
We're trying to make a story here. I'm not trying to force the story to go any particular way. I just need you guys to like move towards the story and not towards every little distraction.
Because then what I put after this, after I put this important thing, have an ending, show the ending. Show the ending.
Yes.
That's the big thing. Show the ending. Then after you have that, you have the ending, you have the start, which is showing the ending. Then after you get all those things, you fill in. You add in side characters. You add in filler fluff to important side details like buildings, places, and things. And then these things will sometimes help guide players. They might be a minor distraction, but make sure that minor distraction is just that. It's just a look. Back to the story.
Good to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Little things to add to the world,
right.
But doesn't lead. It's not. It's a sign on the side of a road, like a billboard, but it's not a literal side road.
Yes.
That says, "Come follow me down the side road," and then at the end of that side road is a billboard. Don't do that.
You got to tread super carefully.
Don't do that. Just have it be on the side. If
Yes.
they're exploring a building, if they're exploring a side room, cool. They explore a side room. put maybe one or two things of interest, but then don't put like a staircase to another room.
Right.
And then that staircase to another room leads to another room. Unless if that's heading towards your ending, then cool, do that. But if it's not, then what are you doing? You're just creating more distraction.
More mini side quests, more mini,
because if you think of it like this, the group might break up. They might separate. And then if you have these side quests that are longer, like a path that's longer, then that means this character's wandering away from the main story, while the other characters are waiting for them at the main story.
Right.
And then one of those characters might get bored and wander away from the main story. And anything you can do to keep the players contained within themselves. And I would strongly recommend don't let people split up. And if they split up, make sure they're in groups.
Yes.
Because again, it's a one-shot.
It's a really great way to describe this would be literally the Scooby-Doo gang, right? Velma sees or says, "Oh wait, I saw a book about this in the library." She goes back to the library. Scooby and Shaggy, they're all and Fred
always off eating
and
food
Daphne,
somewhere.
they're all waiting, and then Shaggy and Scooby say, "We're hungry. We're gonna go get food." So they head to the kitchen of the haunted house.
Whatever DM's running the Scooby-Doo gang in that world is probably pulling their hair out. I don't know how he always gets it back at the end, but he always does. So,
It's true.
I once did run a one-shot where all three characters, this is probably one of my greatest achievements in a one-shot.
Oh.
I had all three characters start at 3 different spots, and each one had 3 acts. And at the 4th act, they all met up at the same location because they all were like detectives or had fallen in their own mystery for their own reason.
Yeah.
And they all each had 3 acts each. And their 3rd act led them to the 4th act where they all met up at the same location at the same time to fight the big, bad, evil guy that all 3 of them were looking for in their own ways.
Right.
One of my greatest things I've ever accomplished.
That's wild.
It took a lot of work, a lot of planning. I don't know how I did it, but it was one of the greatest things. Dave, one of our local players, he played it with me. He probably could tell you how cool. It probably felt really cool when they saw it when I made it work like that.
And all of a sudden you're with other players and you're like, whoa.
And it's like they didn't see what I was doing until the 3rd act, because the first one gave them, the end of the 1st act gave the player A got to the end of act 3, got a location.
Mm-hmm.
Player B got to the end of Act 3, got a location, and realized, wait a second, it's the same location player A got.
Oh.
And then player C gets to their 3rd act, and I give them, like, instead of a location, it's a name. And they're like, ooh, that's something different. But then they get to that name, which led them to that location. And they're like, oh, shoot, all 3 of us here at the same time. Boom, fight the battle.
Was this in person or was this? Oh,
in
wow.
person.
Wow.
Yeah.
So even in person, they didn't see that they were all coming together to the same. Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah. And it was just a fun time.
Yeah.
But important thing to note here. Do not fill your world with too much distraction.
Right.
One shot, make sure it's condensed and it follows that path.
Right.
It's fine having, like I said, the side billboards that they can look and go at, but make sure that they're still walking down the street as they do.
Or just like minor opportunities to help them towards that end goal.
And also, if your world has the chance that it could lead to distractions, put in an NPC that's really good at guiding them back down the path, right?
Sure.
That's always helpful. Especially if it's a fun NPC that's not that hateable, right? So.
And that's its own episode in and of itself.
Yeah, it's true. That is true.
And I do have that noted down. Like, truly, we have an episode inevitably coming where we're going to talk about how to make NPCs likable and how to make them unlikable.
The final thing, an important thing to this second one of the goal, whatever the second one's called, it's the whole goal or whatever. And I said the main thing is make the goal achievable.
Yes.
This is my final piece of advice, Fizz. Make the goal within an arm's reach.
Okay.
That way the characters don't feel deterred and it will keep them moving at a pace towards it. If they can see it,
right,
they'll go towards it.
Right.
It's like the light.
It's
at
like
the
driving.
end of a tunnel, right?
Yeah.
It's like driving. Yeah. It's just how we as humans act. We go towards the things. If we have a goal and we can see it, then we'll go towards it. Right.
Right.
If we can't see it, but we still have that goal, we'll get there, but we might get distracted.
We're hesitant. We're nervous,
whatever, right? But if you can see it, and that's what you want.
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted a hamburger, but you're like, well, I have to drive to the store to get the hamburger. I have to do X, Y, Z to get the hamburger.
Right.
You're like, I might not get the hamburger, right?
But if you're at the store walking
if you're
through
at the store or you're in the mall and you walk past the Burger King, you're like, there's a hamburger right there. I want a hamburger.
That's right.
I just turn and I get it, right? It's
Burger King, not a sponsor.
Yeah, but that's the idea.
Yeah.
You have a story. Make sure they can always see that end goal,
Right.
For good example, say it's a big bad evil guy. Have posters up as you see where there's a poster of the big bad evil guy reminding them this is what you're after.
Right.
Or say they're walking by and they see a destroyed house with a family crying in front of it. And then the player asks who destroyed the house. Big bad evil guy.
Yeah.
Like little reminders that say, hey, this is what you're doing.
Right.
Do this. Stop.
So it's not so much literal. Like they're not literally seeing big bad evil guy just down the block.
No.
It's more kind of like the concept
Constant
or
reminders
okay.
that says, hey, and also like it's also not that far obtainable. Like at the very start, you're like, hey, this is your goal. It's at the end of town. It's like, okay, it's at the end of town. That's where I need to go, right?
Yep.
And it's like, I'm in the town. It's at the end. It's like something that's within attainable distance, right?
Not like a 10-day journey that they're going to have to, yeah.
Okay, so that's step 1 and step 2. So
Right.
step 1 is
Theme and story and everything
setting.
like that.
Step 2 is make an attainable goal.
Right.
Step 3, after you have the setting story, you need to find the system. I know some people have trouble crafting a story because they first start with the system and then try to fit a story into that system, but that limits your creativity.
Sure.
And when you're world building from the start, I have found that if you're trying to cram a story into a system, it can lead to writer's block and getting stuck in a train of thought. To fix this, I save the choosing of an RPG system after I have the story in place and I have the goals created. Once I do that, I can go and find a system that fits the story setting and the goals. Also, when I say this, there are a ton of RPG systems.
Yes.
A lot. And there's so many different kinds, and there's so many different kinds within different kinds, right? So you have plenty to choose from. So don't worry about making the super outlandish system, because trust me when I say this, you can probably find a system that someone has made or created that's at least similar to yours.
Yeah.
And guess what? There's even systems out there that are designed for people to make a setting for, and then they just use this blanket system to just fit for the story. A great one is the Cipher system, which is designed that you can take any setting, use their basic Cipher system guide, combine the two to make your own system for your own setting.
Gotcha. System or setting agnostic TTRPGs.
Basically, yeah. So it's great. So don't worry about that. But once you do that, you'll find a system, blah, 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 right?
And one thing that I'll say, too, the episode that we have coming out in February, I actually do an interview with Hartley Yosa, and for Session Zero Heroes, who's going to talk about the whole concept of getting out of D&D and using other systems for stuff. Exactly like this
and
concept.
And again, like I said earlier, one-shots are a great way to get out of that system.
Absolutely.
To get out of that stuck system.
System lock or whatever you want to call it,
Okay, so now we've got setting.
Yep.
We've got goals and main story.
Yep.
And then we have a system you've picked. Final step is to fill the story with your characters. This is done via the Session Zero.
Yes.
Session Zero Heroes.
Yeah, that's us.
This should be a quick story crafting session that takes less than half an hour. You, as the DM, give a quick world theme overview, and it helps that if the world is something that players are familiar with. We're in Alice in Wonderland world. We're in Oz.
Avatar: The Last Airbender when we did Benders and Brews.
Exactly. The world they're familiar. And if they're not, give them a quick, 5-minute run through. Like, this is the setting. We're in 1890s France, whatever.
Because sometimes you get stuck in a situation where one of your players didn't watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, and they keep talking about how they didn't watch it.
They only watched the movie.
They only watched the movie. That. Like, who does that?
Weirdo. Anyways, you give that quick overview, and then you help your players create a quick character that fits into the world. If it is more complicated system, then I recommend you make pre-made characters and let your characters focus more on the system and learning to play than both character creation and learning to play, because that would take up more time and that will eat at your one shot time frame.
And you can always talk to them and be like, hey, here's a general concept. Is there anything that you can give me that I can work off? Like, if you like playing more of the magic-based characters, I can do something with that. Yeah. If you prefer to play a fighter-based, melee character, I can do that. Like, just give me a general concept and I'll make you a character based on that.
Exactly. Or you could do what I recommended, which is do random characters.
Or random characters, so, absolutely.
I do recommend, though, if you do random characters, do it with an easier system.
Okay.
Though I have thrown people and random characters into D&D and then never played before, but D&D can kind of be a simple system in its own way.
Sure.
So, but anyways, I recommend also that in one shot to have all the players know each other in some way. This helps a ton when characters want to roleplay, because if the characters know each other in some way, then they will have a reference to bounce off of each other. If no one knows each other, it can lead to a lot of awkward moments. But if you have some characters who are, say, partners, friends, or family members, even enemies, it can lead to a lot of fun moments and also will create reasons for characters to want to interact with other characters. Think of it like this. You will have fun if you go on vacation by yourself with total strangers. But you will have an absolute blast if you go on vacation with friends or family or people you're close to.
Right.
Make the characters craft those connections in the one-shot session 0, and I promise this will do most of the heavy lifting for character interactions as the story goes along. I can think of so many one-shots I personally have played in, or I've DM'd, where in session 0, I had them in some way, and Monster of the Week does a great job of doing this. It has
Powered by the Apocalypse stuff in general.
They have 15 options for I know this character this way, I know this character this way, and there's so many variety of reasons. But just giving those connections for each of the characters, it makes you have a reason to work with them, be avoidance of them, but you still are you're watching them, everything. And one shots. This is an own personal thing of mine, but make 2 of the players related somehow. Every time I've done it, it's made the session so much funnier or so much better. It adds so much more depth to it, because just that fact of throwing blood into the mix of 2
I've known people, this person
distant
my whole
cousins.
Life.
I once played a campaign where I played a character, and my other character was my long-lost brother. One of the best one-shots I've ever played, because we were just catching up the whole time, but willing to die for each other, even though we hadn't seen each other in 100 years. Doing that.
Your Monster of the Week, Music Mayhem.
Monster of the Week, Music Mayhem.
Dave and I were he was my uncle, my character's uncle, and it was just the most ridiculous, hilarious thing ever.
Going to the next Monster of the Week run by
Nate.
Yep. Me and Connor were cousins.
Yes.
And that dynamic was so good as well.
It was so good.
It could be any type of blood relation. You could even be step siblings. You could be stepfather, stepson could be hilarious in its own way. But make some group. Heck, if it's a whole family, that could be even better. It create disorder.
Hold on
all
a
around,
second here. Yeah. That's an interesting
Think
idea.
of it you're going on a trip or something, and everyone's all crammed into a van or something like that.
Where have I heard that? I feel like somebody's done that before. But all things considered, that'd be a great Monster of the Week. You're a family on some kind of vacation,
and then a monster shows up or something. That would make. But again,
that'd be hilarious.
And and that's the thing too. It's you can say weirder stuff with your friends and family, right? But if your character doesn't know another character, they're going to be distant, because that's how some people are with strangers.
Oh, right? Absolutely.
But if you know that player, then you could probably say some more stuff. You can bounce things off of them because they're your relative, and it's whatever, they know you and stuff. So.
Honestly, I feel like every TTRPG system should add that element into it.
A way to know each other from the start.
Somehow.
The thing is, though, here's the thing: long-term campaigns, you can get away without it.
Sure.
Because the idea is that they shouldn't know each other beforehand, because the way they grow together is via the long-term campaign.
That's true.
Right? But in a one-shot, you don't have that time to grow together. So pre-establishing that time to grow together is great. And also doesn't mean they can't grow together.
Yeah.
It's easier for them to get into role play and just start growing from that starting point.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So those are my 4 ways.
4 big ones.
4 big ones to so they were
create your setting, your theme, whatever. Get your main goal your big bad, your primary storyline that you're going to kind of accomplish within the span of the one shot. And then number 3, we're going to systems. We're going to pick a system that fits the setting and fits what we're trying to do. And then 4 is we're gonna have our players. We're gonna do our session 0.
Session 0. I almost said heroes.
I know,
because
right?
We're just so used to it. We're gonna have a session 0, and then make the characters connected in some way. Don't have them be strangers.
No,
unless if it's specific for your one shot for them to be strangers. But I highly suggest don't let them be strangers. It just makes role playing easier.
It's so much. Yeah, it takes a lot longer.
I mean, freaking, one of our best games we've ever played was when we pretended to be we were the 3 orcs who were all related, and we had our gnome father who adopted all of us, and we were basically the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but we were Teenage Mutant Ninja Orcs.
It was just a random, so there was a guy at the local convention that we have here in town, the gaming convention, and he had made his own system. And so he wanted to, we were like, oh yeah, we love, trying new systems. And he said it's really easy to teach. So we sat down, and yeah, it was the funniest thing in the world.
It also started we were just trying to figure out what we were going to play. And then the 3 of us sitting next to each other, we hey, what are you playing? He said, I'm playing an orc. And then Skylar's like, oh, I picked orc too.
Yeah.
And I went, I picked orc too.
It's really cool.
And we were like, wait, are we all brothers then? And then it just kind of...
And then the one other guy was like, and I picked a gnome.
And we're like, yo, we could just be the Ninja Turtles.
Orcs. It was so good. And the beauty of it too was that one guy, Cody, had never played
any
TTRPG ever before. And so that was his entire immersion and he was so funny too. Yeah, he kind of led that to some extent. It was great.
He had some of the best bits in it.
We got to get him on the show sometime.
I really want to do a full long-term campaign with him because I think he'd be hilarious.
He's very funny.
Okay, so now that I've covered everything that I feel is important to make a good one shot, I want to break down the who, what, when, where, why, hows, basically.
Sure.
So first off, who. This is for the players of your normal RPG group. Okay. You can even use one-shots as a good way to introduce new players to your regular group, or to be a fun side quest and say a friend is visiting from out of state and you want to include them in your normal RPG nights.
Yeah.
That's the who for this is for.
Sure.
What? A good one-shot is whatever you as a DM make it. You will have to do some legwork up front, but if you enjoy the story and the setting and it's something you're passionate about, then the excitement will carry over into the story you have made for the players. I did put this note here. I forgot to mention it in my other thing, but it's a very important note. Make sure that your story setting is something that the group will care about.
Right.
If no one in your group cares about historical financial situations, then don't run a historical finance-based story, even if it's something you really enjoy. Because if they don't care about it in the slightest, they won't care about the story in the slightest.
And that was the only thing that I could think of that I was going to ask you about, as far as when you were talking about you as the DM choosing a setting and a theme and everything that you love. That's the one minor caveat to it, that if your players are going to hate it, there's just...
There is a great example of this in our group. Skylar already knows what I'm talking about. Okay. Skylar tries to force Pokemon into all of his campaigns. Cameron, have
you can say it. You can be honest.
I don't hate it. I have zero interest in Pokemon. Absolutely none. The most I've done for Pokemon was Pokemon Go, and that's because it just felt like something that wasn't truly Pokemon, but just something, and a collection game, I guess. Yeah. I don't know, but I wasn't even really that into it. I only played it because my friends played it. It was something to do while they played. But
the funny thing is that this is a little bit of a spoiler for Coin, but there is an element inside Criminals of Isla Numis that you guys have not discovered yet that may or may not have elements of Pokemon attached to it. And it's not necessary. It's not necessary for you guys to explore, but I put it in there just in case somebody had a slight interest. And you're now the only, actually, no, you and technically Quinn would be the only ones that know anything about it, because he has his whole...
I'm just going to tell you, I'm not really going to go
I kind of figured.
I'm just saying, there's a great example. Yes, if Skylar has a table full of Camerons who don't hate Pokemon, they have zero interest in Pokemon, and Skylar says, hey, I brought a Pokemon one shot to play.
Why do I sound like this?
They'd be like, hooray, and then none of them would care. It's just
You know, the funny thing is that when I first discovered Dungeons and Dragons, like just TTRPGs in general, for the most part in college, that was the like original thing that I tried playing. Mm-hmm. All we did was session 0. We made our characters. He showed us how Pokemon worked. It was excessively complicated. Like even today, I'm like, how did that even work? I think I found like whatever system he was using that like added to D&D 5e for Pokemon. Yeah. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I just don't care. Make it simple. Have a monster. If you ever watch, and not a sponsor, not affiliated with us or anything. If you ever watch Node, Node, again, pretty popular YouTube channel. They did a Pokemon campaign, and it is the funniest thing I've ever watched in my life. I've probably watched through it like 5 times, and it's stupid simple. They literally just caught D&D monsters for the most part. There was a little bit of like Pokemon that were mixed in. Like one guy references Charmander. I don't know if he ever actually catches a Charmander. It's irrelevant. Anyway, they catch D&D monsters, and then they just battle D&D. Like you throw it into the ring, and then you take turns like you normally would, and you use their stat block. Like it's the easiest thing in the world. I'm like, why in the world are we not doing this? This is all completely irrelevant. I just want to establish, ironically, Pokemon D&D is kind of what got me into D&D, and I've just never been able to get people into it.
This is also irrelevant, but I'm doing a long-term text-based RPG system with some friends online, and Skylar's one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And Skylar's character is forcing me to run a Pokemon. He's making me run a Pokemon themed campaign for him. It is not a Pokemon themed campaign, and he's turning it into against my will. I
captured a creature, and I'm planning on capturing more and having them battle for me. And now you're trapped. You have to do this the way I want it.
Oh, yeah. I'll just kill your character off and then ban. No, I'm joking. Okay, so that was the
caveat. The
what?
The what? Yes.
The what? It was make a good one shot of something you care about, and also make sure that the group will care about it as well. For the most part, doing over the top generic things with like regular settings and stuff, that'll work. It's just when you go into like something where very niche, then you might have to watch out.
It's the classic, and I meant to say this actually at the beginning when you introduced the first concept, which was coming up with your theme and your setting. And I know every DM out there will always say steal. Go find content you enjoy and then just use it. I mean, unless it's copyright and you're trying to make a podcast kind of like what we do or whatever the case, like you can do what you want. Disney's not going to call you up with a cease and desist letter and slap it down on your on you.
So that's exactly it. Take inspiration from things.
Take inspiration from things you love and your players love.
As I near the start of the class, then when is whenever your group feels like. This includes a lot of reasons, but honestly, if you ask me, any time can be a good time for a one-shot. That's my personal opinion.
You do have a bit of a bias. You did say you love one-shots at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. I do like them.
But I do agree.
But it's like I said, to reiterate, like I said in my first start, like these were all the different reasons of when you could do a one-shot. Take all of those. If any of them apply, run a one-shot.
They pretty much apply to any time.
Really? They do? Yeah. That's the beauty of a one-shot.
And like we said before, sometimes a one-shot can just lead right into the long-term session. Also, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Also, there's like hundreds of one-shots online that you can find. Most of them kind of are behind paywalls, but they're like cost like $1, $2. Yeah, so like if you aren't a person that like wants to make your own, there's plenty out there that you can find. Out there. So
absolutely.
Where? This goes for the setting of your story. The where is the first and foremost thing I recommend you figure out. The setting. This will help you craft the story around the setting you want to dive into.
Sure.
The why. Why not? That's my reason. Why not?
Nice.
The how. Hopefully this short class helped answer all of the how.
Wow.
Any questions?
Did you know that you said why not? Did you know that why not is a Pokemon?
Suspend Skylar.
No. No, I mean honestly, I think that was a solid covering of just all the reasons why you should, all the reason, or in an explanation of how to enact that one-shot campaign. Which again, all the reasons are for every reason. Do it, try it. There's plenty of reasons why, and then how is exactly what we've gone through here. Is
also another pro, since I've just been named like mostly pros. A one-shot world is a lot smaller than a long-term campaign world.
Right.
So if you don't have the time, but you want to DM,
Yeah.
but you don't have the time to DM a long-term campaign, like the time to create it. I mean, I mean, like free time. But you can do but it's something you want to do. It's easier to find the time to make a one-shot world because it does not take that long. And it's also, like I said, there's a lot of resources online to help with one-shots. So that'll help make it faster than a long-term world. Because a long-term world has a lot more to it. That's just the nature of it, right? But short-term, it's a lot less to it. So
honestly, and I'll go back to what I said before with like your players will help you build it.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes a one-shot can work really well as that introduction to long-term because you don't have to come up with all the world that's out there. Your players during the one-shot will give you prompts.
Especially some really creative players. Some really creative players will, on a dime, name drop people, characters, people, places, and things. They will name drop nouns, like proper nouns, like big things that could be used in a long-term campaign, and they'll just drop it on a dime. And if you weren't taking notes, you're like, oh shoot, that could be something very useful.
I want to go down to Steamy Mountains. The Steamy Mountains, that's where my character comes from, and
you're like,
that's his home. You're like, Steamy Mountains, all right, I'll put it down in my note.
Hot Spring Mountains.
Hey.
The family runs a local hot spring there.
Absolutely. Like, and now you're okay. So now there's a family. Okay, who's this family? Let's talk about that. It's just giving you prompts, and that's why you should absolutely take good notes.
Yeah, take notes. Yeah.
I'm very guilty of not doing that.
I've started doing it because I found that if you don't, for one shots, I don't typically take notes.
You're right.
Unless if the one shot is designed in a world that's like part of, and that's another thing I didn't even mention here, but you could do one shots inside of your world. It's basically like a side quest in your long-term campaigns world. And it's another way. It's like, I don't want to say it, but it's like the beach episode of anime, right? Like those, it's the side quest. A one shot is the beach episode of your D&D campaign, but sometimes it's good. It's a way to character build in a different way, because taking characters from this long-term thing and putting them into a short-term situation, it can be fun. It can create funny situations and stuff. And for the most part, I think one shot should be more fun than serious. Oh, yeah. Because long term's designed to be this more. They can have both fun and serious tones. But a one shot, if you go serious, then it can just become too drab and dark and stuff. So keep it fun. Like, that's the idea. Yeah. Keep it fun. Right?
Even in our horror stuff that we've done in the past,
we usually end up laughing more than anything. Yeah. So,
and I think your players are just going to gravitate. I don't know. Maybe it's just us.
It could be our group. Yeah. But some groups are a little more serious, and that's fine for a one shot and stuff. But like, I personally do think one shots should be a little more fun. Think of it too like a video game, right? Like, the side quests usually aren't as serious, but there are some side quests in video games that are pretty serious. Yeah. A little dark, and it's like, okay, well, this is a harsh part of the world, but sometimes you need those moments. If anything, for the most part,
I don't see any like small, like sit down and play it in an hour type game, like video games that are overly serious. No. Like, or you don't have enough time to build up that tension.
No, I was meaning more like either. I was talking more like in a long-term campaign. Right. If you're doing a side quest, a one shot in a long-term campaign, and the one shot is a serious tone.
Oh yeah,
that's because it's a one shot in a long-term campaign, and you could be using that serious tone to kind of fuel the world of that long-term campaign. Absolutely. That's pretty cool. But if you're doing strictly a one-shot with it contained within itself, then I recommend don't do serious, because that'll be weird. It'll be just like, what tone are we going for here? Like, no. Right. If it's a one-shot in its own world, have fun.
Keep it fun. Yeah. Keep it fun. Awesome. All right. With all of that being said, first of all, Cameron, thank you so much for sharing all your incredible expertise on one-shots and everything. All this research, all this like the class notes and everything that you've done to help us all understand better how we can make one shots, how we should be running one shots, how we should be building those for our players, but also for ourselves to have a good time. Mm-hmm. So I think that's super beneficial information from Session Zero University. With that being said, before we end the episode, we do want to jump into our
I forgot about this.
You did?
I forgot about this.
Oh, man. All right, so
Hello.
Yes, welcome back. We are so at the end of every Session Zero University episode, we're going to be doing what is called an intramural, which is sort of a game that just a short, quick, little fun game that we're going to do to kind of A, entertain you, of course, the listener, and also B, to give you guys maybe some ideas or maybe create something that will help to sort of help you create, in a sense. And the one that we had planned for this, I thought was fitting, was called our Public Domain One-Shot. And so the idea behind this is that I have here a massive list of various different things that have entered the public domain. I said that this was perfect, one, because it's all about one-shots. We're going to be crafting a one-shot using some of these characters and places and things. And then the other side of it, too, is that every January in the United States, among other countries, it's just different, like, number of years. Something gets released or several things get released, usually multiple things, into the public domain. And this year, I know we're celebrating Popeye.
Yeah, Popeye's the big one.
Is the big one who's going into the public domain. There's plenty of other stuff, some interesting music, some other film and such that's going in, but that's kind of one of the big ones. A lot of people are just waiting for cartoon characters ever since Winnie the Pooh. It's just been like, what characters are going in, because we want to like use them for stuff. Mm-hmm. Mostly horror movies for some reason. With that being said, I've got this massive list of characters. So each of us are going to both come up with our own one shot. So ironically, this is modeled pretty well after what you came up with. So first one is characters. Mm-hmm. This one's mostly just because, again, characters are kind of the interesting thing about the public domain. That's the thing everybody's kind of waiting for a lot of people. The second element is places. So this is going to be the sort of the locations that are inside of some of these pieces of media. And I went kind of broad with them, right? It's just more of a concept. Mm-hmm. And then there is a threat or plot. This is the goal, like you talked about. This is just sort of something that happens inside of the story from these public domain pieces of media, in a broad sense, to use as kind of the big overarching goal. Or
the hook.
It's the hook. Yep, exactly. So, Cameron, I'll have you roll first for characters. There are 39 different characters that I kind of summarized. There's a lot of characters out there, but these are just kind of the key ones. So if you want to roll 2 d20s, and if you roll 2 20s, 28. So you got, interesting. Man, that one's almost too easy. King Arthur and Merlin and just anything from kind of King Arthurian legend. You can use, and that doesn't mean you have to use all of them. Like, just you can have a character that you want. Okay, perfect. All right. So for places,
I'm gonna need a quick Google, actually.
Yeah, that's totally fine. For places, you'll roll another d20. You're looking for 14 or lower, just because I was only able to kind of summarize about 14 different locations.
14?
Yeah.
11.
So you're gonna go a desert island where an alleged treasure resides. What a smile.
Okay.
And
that works perfectly with my ideas.
Sounds good. And then threat or plot line, kind of either or. Roll a d8 for me. This one I've got 8. So 1. Oh, that's also what I got. Oh man, I might have to reroll.
I could reroll if you need me to.
Yeah, go ahead. 4. The players are transported to a strange new world, but promised a way home if they can accomplish a special task. Did it just write itself?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you got?
So when you said King Arthur, anything from that world, immediately my brain think I'm not going to go obvious, duh. Right. So I went Vivian, or Nume is her other name, the Lady of the Lake with Excalibur.
Okay.
That was my thought.
Sure.
And so then when you said it's a desert island with an artifact or a relic on it, it's Excalibur.
Okay.
The characters are looking for Excalibur, and they're looking for the Lady of the Lake. Somewhere on this desert island is a oasis, and in the center of the oasis is Vivian with the Excalibur.
Okay.
But the catch is, to get there, they have to combat a monster or two that might be in the way. Maybe escape some, quicksand or something. It might be inside a temple, something. But the beauty of this is condensed on an island. You really don't need to put that much into it because they're kind of trapped there and stuff. But the instant they can get Excalibur, they're teleported back.
Okay.
Quick little one shot right there, but I could see a lot of fun things in it. And if you want to get even more creative, you could teleport in other famous creatures and monsters from King Arthur's times. Maybe even have a dragon, but like a pseudo dragon,
right?
Or
you
something
don't want to
like
throw
that.
like a full ancient dragon,
but you have that like guarding the temple or something.
Okay, nice, classic, very good, very good. I like it. I got the Wonderful Wizard of Oz for my characters, so that can be Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion.
I was thinking about that today, mind you, when we were talking about, because we were texting today before we were doing this one shot,
right?
And I was just thinking, like, what's a fun world setting that you can do one shots in, or even a long-term campaign? And I was like, the Wizard of Oz, like, do you know how many books there are?
Oh, dude, I just recently found out about it.
It's insane.
Yeah, like, there was one someone was referencing, and they're like, oh yeah, it's number 23 in the series, and I'm like, excuse me? 23? Yep. Are you kidding me?
The world is crazy. Huge. It's so huge. And I was like, you could run a long-term campaign in that world and just have so much stuff you could just drop on people. And it's insane.
Yeah, man. And then they've made a second movie because people talk about it a lot because there were like a weird group of people with rollerblades that are really creepy. And I've seen the clip a couple of times. I can't remember what they're called. And so, yeah, there would be something there too. If you wanted to do some research and you don't like reading as much, read some summaries and then watch that. Yeah. So yeah, I got Wonderful Wizard of Oz for my characters. The places I'm getting is a mystical desert land with a city of tents, so kind of like Aladdin.
Yeah.
And then my threat or plot is an ancient manuscript is discovered that would lead someone to an unexplored place. Journey to the center of the earth is kind of where that kind of came from. I'm imagining you've got a traveling merchant, and he's kind of like a weird dude. He's like a collector of things, right? And so he's collected. I would imagine he's probably one of the players. And then you have the three other players are the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion. Like he travels around the world, right? He's not just limited to this sort of Arabic space, country, whatever. But that's where he's at.
So he's wandered into Oz.
Yes, or he's wandered into like sort of an Aladdin style desert area. He finds a tablet, like it's an ancient stone, like Egyptian hieroglyphic tablet. And he and the others kind of follow that to, it could be like a pyramid. It could be, maybe that's a little too typical. It could be a sphinx. Actually, a sphinx would be really interesting. There's an opportunity there for like a riddle. Mm-hmm. And then they have to try to figure it out. One for each character based on their courage, heart, brain, Now you're just that's just Oz, But you said Tin Man, Lion, as a character, true. So I'm like, that's their growth,
experience.
It's an opportunity there, and then they get inside of this sort of like ancient thing. Again, with any one shot, I think it's going to be prevalent that there's going to be like a couple of encounters, maybe some smaller encounters along the way. They're going to run into like some scarab beetle swarms. Yeah. They might end up against some sort of got a bunch of jackals, things like that. But at the end of it all, probably a mummy. Yeah, mummies are classic to this.
Guarding the last thing.
Which also the mummy, the original like book of the mummy, is also in the public.
It
so
is.
That works too.
With all the other
like
school monsters,
or OG monsters, Frankenstein's monster and everything like that. So So anyway, that's public domain one shot. So if you're looking for kind of an obscure source of inspiration,
boom, we just gave you two.
Yeah, we just gave you a bunch of or just the fact of like go check out what's in the public domain because you would be surprised at what's in the public domain. And there's a lot of good stuff in there that you can use.
To be fair, you don't need to do public domain if you're not recording it.
That's also true.
You could just straight up do like a Stranger Things inspired episode.
That's true.
Straight up Hunger Games inspired one shot. Like
nothing's stopping you. Absolutely.
But if you're recording it and trying to make a profit, then maybe go.
You might want to go with public domain, or again,
or make your own.
If you're looking for like that's obviously. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And if you're looking for like visuals and stuff that you can use, public domain is definitely free. So, awesome. So thank you all. And especially thank you, Professor
Roger James Biddenbocker.
Roger James Biddenbocker, not to be confused with Orville Redenbacher.
Nope.
No relation.
Nope.
Thank you for your expertise on one shots. I hope that those listening and of course myself got a lot out of this class. So once again, this has been Session Zero Heroes, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's class. We hope you gained some new knowledge and ideas from our incredibly knowledgeable professors, which you can take with you to your table and implement into your games and sessions. If you enjoy what we're developing here at Session Zero University, then be sure to check out our lessons in practice by checking out various actual play episodes. We have tested and recorded a variety of games, systems, stories, and themes for your enjoyment, from Dungeons & Dragons to Powered by the Apocalypse to Kids on Bikes and more. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Session Zero Heroes podcast so you don't miss out on any of our future TTRPG content. Our show is available everywhere podcasts can be found, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to YouTube, so there are plenty of places that you can follow and listen from. We encourage you to check us out on social media as well, whether you're prevalent on Facebook, X, Instagram, Blue Sky, or Discord. We're there, and we'd love for you to join our community. And if you're willing, we would truly appreciate you dropping a review on whatever platform you're listening to if it allows you to do so. Your feedback means a lot and helps others to discover our show. Thank you so much, and we'll see you for your next class at Session Zero University, run by the Session Zero Heroes podcast.